ready?
I'm ready. No, still ready. Go, go, go!
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Go, Go, Go podcast. As always, your host here, Anthony Concha and Mark Tisdale. Hey, Mark, how's your week been?
Dude, excellent. Busy at work, doing some schooling, getting ready to move on in the career. Very
That's
exciting.
right. My boy here is a college kid. How's that feel? Or college adult? I don't know what to call you.
Yeah, whatever. I guess, call me a kid. I'm 32 years old. I'll never grow up.
I still call everyone kids. It's a Northeast Philly thing. What can I say?
Yeah.
But Mark, what's great about this week, man?
Well, I am reviewing math, so that's not really great. It's for me anyway. Math, it's not difficult. It's kind of a snooze for me, but
I hear you, man. It's the same thing for me. For me, history is a snooze. I hated history. I like history as we're living it, looking at it. I don't like going back 2,000 years to figure out what happened, but it is what it is.
I was going to say, we're going to have a little history today. So,
we are going to have a little history.
Very true.
Yeah, so this week is it's kind of special for the motorsports fan out there because it's officially Speed Weeks, Mark. It's Speed Weeks 2021, which means we will have NASCAR race cars out on the track again. Tuesday, we have the Busch Clash, which is nothing more than just an exhibition race to see kind of how the teams have prepared and are ready to go for the season. And then on Thursday, we actually have the duels. They used to be the Gatorade duels. I don't know what they're called this year. They're something else. But essentially, there's two races. One race determines who starts in the inside lane. Another race determines who starts in the outside lane. And we get the season started like that. But Mark, let me ask you real quick, and we'll move along. The Daytona 500, a lot of people say it's our Super Bowl. We just had the actual Super Bowl pass us yesterday. Who is your prediction to win the 2021 Daytona 500?
Well, the thing about restrictor plate races is they are kind of anybody's game. So it's kind of hard to pick somebody. If you'd have told me a couple of years ago Austin Dillon was going to win, I would have said, you're crazy. I should have put money on that one. But
we had a lot of surprise winners when Trevor Bayden won once when cousin Carl pushed him.
Yeah, 21-year-old.
And he disappeared. I don't know what he does nowadays.
I'm not too sure.
He's not racing.
Followed him. No.
But for just for entertainment purposes, man, give me a name, give me a number. Let's just hope for the best.
I would like to see Martin Truex Jr. win.
Good choice.
I wouldn't mind seeing Bubba Wallace do pretty well.
He got second place once.
Yeah. It's either of those guys I'd like to see do well. But I'm not really sure who I would pick to win. Denny Hamlin's probably strong to win the race.
No, those are all good people.
For 3 years.
I think I'm definitely interested in seeing what Bubba can do with the new team owned by Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin. So it'd be nice to see if they're actually a fifth Gibbs car or if they're going to be one of those laid back, they have an affiliation, but it doesn't actually perform. So it'd be interesting to see that. But for me, I will say, it pains me to say that the 48 is no longer in NASCAR. And yes, Alex Bowman is driving the 48. I personally don't think he deserves that number. I personally, I will say the 48 is not on the track. And that is my opinion right now. So, going with taking on new drivers, I've adopted Denny Hamlin as my driver. There's a lot of reasons that I could say that. But I'll tell you what, Mark, he's won the Daytona 500 2 years in a row now. I don't know if you remember that, but I keep a little bit of math on that. And so if he were to win it this coming Sunday, he'd be the first driver ever in history to do a three-peat at Talladega. So I'm rooting for Denny all the way. He's got the equipment, he's got the talent, and his daughter can't turn off his race car from home. So we can get them to win the race. But yeah, man. Now going off of that, coincidentally, the Daytona 500 falls with February 14th, which we all know is Valentine's Day. You have a wife. Any plans for Valentine's, Mark?
We don't have anything like, we got kids, so it's kind of hard to plan a night out when you got kids, and that's the same day as the Daytona 500. So
I'm sure you'll have something together, family. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to put a gun to your head, but it's not Daytona 500 Valentine's Day. They're two separate things, two different times. Just saying.
Look, all I'm saying is she'll probably get a gift, and we'll probably go do our thing later, because everything gets booked up kind of.
Go do your thing later.
Yeah, but I mean,
what does that sound like?
So what I mean is
you might be giving us too many details there.
Too heavy. Well, no. Typically, we'll go plan our restaurant night out another night. It's so hard to get into a place on Valentine's Day.
It makes sense.
Gift exchange and that's our deal.
Places are booked up. I can definitely attest that this year myself. So hopefully I'll be doing something this Valentine's. Who knows? Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
There you go. Have to get an update from you.
There you go. Anyways, Mark, another thing I wanted to touch real quickly on today's podcast is not necessarily do a recap of the 24 hours of Daytona, but just touch upon it because as you may know, as everyone may know, Jimmy Johnson is one of the people in racing that I admire a lot, that I follow a lot, and he actually raced once again in the 24 hours of Daytona, and he finished second. He was driving a Cadillac DPI. That stands for Daytona Prototype International. Believe it or not, Mark, I actually learned a lot about the classes and the rules and everything for this Daytona 24, and I did want to share about that with the folks. Jimmy actually started driving for the team. Out of the four drivers at Daytona, he actually had the first stint to go, which is a pretty important job because you're going out there 24 hours. You're going to race about 4 hours because I think every driver has the ability of racing 4 hours, and you got to make sure you don't go too far back. You're keeping with the front lead in order to give your guy, the next guy who's going to hop into your car, an ability to still be in it. So the fact that they gave Jimmy the ability to go first, and he kept his car, I believe when he handed his car, he was in fourth place 4 hours after the start. The race started somewhere around 3:30. It was interesting to see that he was able to keep up with it. I've said, and I will always say, Jimmy's a talented driver, 7-time Cup champion, and now he's going into IndyCar. But he's trying to do an effort with IMSA. Last I heard, Mark, is that if he gets the funding from Ally and some other places, that he might want to do the 6 hours at the Glen, which I've invited you to come with me. I've never been to Watkins Glen. I only know it because of NASCAR, but it'd be interesting to see these cars go around Watkins Glen.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to go. Me, I'm a Corvette guy, so I would love to go to watch the Corvettes run IMSA series. Yep. So I have a question. Is this Jimmy Johnson's first event ever doing anything involved with the IMSA class or GT car?
Actually, he has raced it once before, and he actually got second place that time before. So he matched his first outing, which is fantastic.
Do you know where he finished overall? Or
So his car, his team, because remember, there's 4 guys to a car. His car ended second place overall.
Overall, okay, excellent.
Yeah. So he was up there. I mean, I believe between the first car and the second car, there was a 13-second difference. Now, 13 seconds in racing is a lot, but if you count that over 24 hours, the only thing that separated 2 cars was 13 seconds, I mean, they were right on pace.
That's crazy, yeah, for sure. That's a long time to be on the track.
And now that you bring up Corvette racing, and kind of interesting thing about them, so they actually won their class, which is great. But now that we're in the COVID age, one of their drivers actually found out that he tested positive for COVID while driving the car. So I'm assuming, I don't know exactly what the COVID protocol was for drivers, but I'm assuming that you either got tested before the race started, a couple days before the race started, to make sure that you're clear. I know a lot of the international drivers had to get tested in their home countries before they could come into the U.S., but Antonio Garcia, which is part of the Corvette team, for whatever reason, and I still don't know the ins and outs of this, was actually told while he was racing, hey, we need you to step out of the car because you tested positive for COVID. Now, think about this. From his perspective, you're like, oh, crap. I have to get out, maybe lose the lead, do whatever. But then think about this, Mark, and I actually want to get your thoughts about this.
Sure.
He gets out of the car. He's tested positive for COVID. Now, it could be a false positive. It could be, one of those things. But as far as we all know, he tested positive. And now it's your turn to get in the car. How would you feel about that? Because, he was in there, he was breathing inside the car. I'm not saying he's spitting all over the place, but he's talking to his crew. And as you talk to your crew, spit comes out. Would you feel comfortable getting into the car after him? Would you have taken precaution? Should the team have withdrew from the race? Like, what do you think?
So I don't know what order he was in the car. I don't know if he was the last in the car. I do know that Corvette finished 1-2, and right. Unfortunately, I don't know what order the drivers switched or where he was.
Let me give you a quick preview on this, right? So drivers can switch. Each driver has to drive a minimum of 2 hours when they get in the car. They can drive up to a maximum of 4 hours once they're in the car. But at the and there's a schedule, Mark's going to get in first, then Anthony, then David, and then John. But the crew chief can call an audible and say, no, we're going to switch this lineup. And most drivers are driving multiple times. So it's not just you drive once and you're done. You're going to come in at least 2 to 3 times during the race. So I don't exactly know what the point was, but in the point where he was, there were still at least 2 or 3 drivers that were still going to get in the car after him once he was told. So with that information, would you feel comfortable getting into the car and continuing the event?
So for me, now I'm speaking for myself.
For sure,
I'm pretty low risk for all the side effects and the. What do they call it? Pre-existing conditions. I don't have any like the pre-existing conditions that they're worried about for it. So I would feel comfortable getting into the car and running. Unfortunately, I'd have to social distance from everybody for at least those 2 weeks after I was done.
Afterwards, for sure.
Yes. But I mean, for him, it was unfortunate he didn't even get to celebrate with his team because I don't know if he was first or second, but they did get 1-2 in their class.
Correct. He was in the winning car.
Okay, yeah. So I would feel comfortable getting into the car, knowing the risks, doing my best to take those precautions, sanitizer, mask, and I would be okay with that. Unfortunately, you would have to self-quarantine, and I would be okay with that if it meant, hey, look, we got a real good shot at winning here.
For sure. No, and I agree with you. And I felt bad for him because I did read the interviews. I've heard what he's had to say. And he was literally crying when he got out of the car because not only was he crying, forget the victory, a race is a race, but he was actually crying because he thought that he had put his fellow competitors in danger and just wanted to see, wanted to make sure that everyone was okay. So I get it. Where I would question a little bit would be how come he didn't have his result before getting into the car? Now, I don't want to say that this is IMSA's fault, his team's fault, the manufacturer's fault. It's none of that. It's just, in these times of COVID, and I know everything is new, and we always like to say the new normal, why wasn't this all taken care of beforehand? But that's all I'm going to say. After that, the team acted the way they did. Sure. They won the race, and everything was great.
It's kind of hard to judge because you're kind of waiting on a company to make that decision how they're going to get in contact with you to do it. So you're kind of at their mercy. Are they still waiting? Well, we need this guy to drive for us. So, and then unfortunately they got that call in the middle of the race. So who knows? I mean, we don't know the circumstances.
No, that's for sure. But in closing with talking about the 24, I definitely want to congratulate the Acura team. They were up top of the podium. Last year, they were actually a Penske organization team. This year, they're a Wayne Taylor Racing organization, which is funny because the guy who won in DPI and the Chevy racing team, they're actually owned by the same person. And it was brothers racing on those cars. So both brothers got to win the Daytona 24 in their appropriate classes. So that's definitely a congratulations to them. And it's good to see sportsmanship, brothers out there. Like most people know, me and my brother race out there as much competitively, and it's fun. And you think of like Kurt and Kyle and things of that nature. So when you're doing a competition or racing, it's fun against other competitors. But when you're doing it against your brother or someone in the family, it definitely raises the stakes up a little bit. And so I'm cool with that. The last note here is the top three. It was Acura, Cadillac, and Mazda. So always great, no matter what series you're racing, when you have three different manufacturers on the top of the podium, and it's not just everyone on the podium is the same car. So this means the cars were somewhat equal, and everyone had a shot at winning the race. But going forward, Mark,
I like seeing more. I like seeing more than one manufacturer up there doing well.
For sure. So rolling on today's podcast, Mark, I know that I saw some pictures on Facebook about your baby, and I'm not talking about Tiffany. I saw some pictures there about your project car and something happened. And so, give us an idea of what your project is. I think we've barely touched on it on last episodes. What happened and what you're actually looking to do with this project going forward.
So we've kind of touched on this before. We're both car guys. We love cars. I'm working on an old project. It's a 95 Subaru LX. So I'm kind of been working on that, restoring it. It's going to be more of like a version 2 STI clone. And the reason I say I'm building a clone car is I don't want to import an original and then start hacking the thing up, because I'm going to put this in there or that in there and destroy the value of an original. So,
that's what you love doing.
No, I don't like destroying original. I like to try and keep it as nice as possible. If I bought an original and I had to import it over here from Japan, it would be looked after meticulously, like as factory original as I could get it. But
did you just quote Fast and the Furious? You're like, what? Overnight parts from Japan.
No, I mean, just looking at it meticulously, and yes, there would probably have to be overnight parts from Japan because it's not all here. As a matter of fact, I think the seats I got in the car from Japan. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff from Japan on the car right now that is from the OEM car that we didn't get in the States. So, but yeah, one of the it's 25 years old, so it's pretty old. One of the shocks where it mounts onto the steering knuckle, the rust went ahead and took care of those welds there, and it broke. It didn't break anything else other than the shock, so I mean, it wasn't as catastrophic as I thought it was going to be. Luckily, I was doing like 5 miles an hour, so already had plans to replace all that stuff, so we're just kind of doing it a little sooner than I thought.
So it just made you go into the future fast. Yeah, no, it's I saw the tire bend on Facebook, and it's always interesting to see the stories behind the thing. And what you were doing. But yeah, at least, the speeds that you were doing didn't put you in danger or anyone else in the car in danger. But it's so hard to see when your baby or your project has a boo-boo. So have you gotten it fixed yet, or what's the plan going forward?
So I've ordered parts. I'm just waiting on parts to get here. And that's pretty much it. Speaking of project cars, I think me and Charlie Tamaris are actually talking about, I don't know if you've seen my post on Instagram not too long ago about that green van. It's an old Chevy van. My dad used to have one, and he said, I think I know a guy down the road that's got one if you're interested in buying it. And I was like, yeah, maybe.
For those of you who don't know, Charlie Tamaris is another rally driver with the American Rally Association that lives up in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, which is our, for me, it's my home event. It's actually your home event, too, because it's probably the closest event to Delaware as well.
I think so.
So, yeah, that's who he is. And he's always very interactive with everyone and a very people's person and always likes helping folks. So we definitely like Charlie and the Twisted Nuts Racing team over there.
Yeah, they're good guys. So what's your driving situation like? Where's your what do you got going on your ride?
Well, Mark, it's funny because growing up, I always had a vision for my dream car, and I classify dream cars into attainable dream cars and maybe not so attainable dream cars. And so growing up, I always wanted an Evo. I wanted an Evo because Tommy Mäkinen drove an Evo in the WRC, and I thought it was the coolest thing, and I always wanted them to beat Subarus. I was not always a Subaru fan, and you know this. I think I've told you that before. But as we see, time went on, and the Evo was not produced anymore. And so what was left was the Subaru STI, but it had the hatchback edition. And to be quite honest, I don't like the hatchback edition Subaru. I know a lot of people, die for it. I know a lot of people, there's a market for it. People love it. But I like the sedan version. And so I bought the sedan version. That was great. It's a fast car. It's literally a go-kart, an adult go-kart, and it does what it does. But once COVID started and I didn't have a need to go to the office as frequent, actually I'm still working from home nowadays, I decided to kind of give it up. And now I'm pursuing a new car. And some people may kind of twitch an eye at this, but I'm actually looking at the Tesla Model 3. And I've test driven it. I've looked at it. I've looked at the price, which is kind of put a little restrict on me.
They're a little high.
But a little high, yeah. But it does what it says it does. It's not false advertisement. It's fast. It's nimble. It does everything. And my dream right now, Mark, and I know you love Kit from Knight Rider, but if you really think about it, and I've come to this conclusion on my own, is that the Tesla of today is actually Knight Rider. It's Kit. You can talk to it. It can drive by itself. It does a lot of things. Actually, you can actually download a Kit voice package onto the car, so it talks to you like Kit.
I didn't know that. At all.
Yeah. So
you got William Daniels. Nice.
So now my dream, if it happens, would be to get a black Tesla Model 3 and try to somewhat simulate what Kit looked like. And that would be my Kit of the future. But, that's future plans.
So, speaking of Tesla and the self-drive, did you see the commercial for that new Cadillac during the Super Bowl?
Yes, I did.
Self-driving. I was like, okay, now we're really getting into this. We're going to push the envelope on these EVs now.
It's 100% there, man. And every time you turn around, well, GM came out with a statement last week, I believe. They said that they're going to, by the year 2035, they're no longer going to make any more gas vehicles. They're going 100% electric. Now, the year 2035 is a long way a ways, but think about that. They already have a deadline.
Electric vehicles are the way of the future. As a matter of fact, I am kind of hopeful that, once they start to get, the range for these EVs figured out, because that's the biggest drawback of the car is they take forever to charge. They use a ton of energy when they're doing it. I mean, what is our energy level in the city? So we make 5% more than we're using right now. So, but once they figure out, a good way to get the range up and the charge times down. Now, I know you can do that at like a supercharging station. Right. It's only a couple of minutes, and it's very cheap. It's very cheap. I've seen it done in like $4. You get a half a charge for your car or something. You do,
yeah.
But I think once they do that, it's going to be it's just going to start taking over. It'll be the way of the future here.
Let me tell you this, Mark. And I'm a numbers guy. That's what I work in, and I have actually sat down and done the math. And even though, and in this case, yes, nowadays there's a lot of electric vehicles, but I'm going to talk about the Tesla because it's what interests me in the numbers that I've done, is that there is a breaking point where even though the car's a little bit more expensive at the beginning, with how much it costs to charge versus how much it would be for gas, you will be getting a savings. Now, here's a couple myths that I do like to dispel that I was actually erroneous in knowing about this. Now, if I were to buy the Tesla tomorrow, I can just plug it in. I can literally put an extension out of my window out of my bedroom window, put it outside, and charge the car. So you do not need anything extra to charge the car. Now, here's the problem, Mark. If I do that, they said it charges at a rate of 4 miles per hour, meaning that for every hour that it's plugged in, it's only going to charge the amount of what would be 4 hours of driving, which is super slow. But here's the thing. If I let it charge overnight, all night, and I'm not using it every day, while I'm working from home, I'm at home. If I go to the grocery store, that's about it. I don't even have to go get gas anymore. So the car would be fully charged most of the time. If I went to a supercharger, like you said, it could be about half an hour. You're paying about $4 to $6, depending where you're going, and the car's fully charged. Now, Elon Musk is smart. He's one of the most intelligent guys out there, I believe, because he even incorporated Netflix into the screen. So the whole idea is that you can sit there, watch, a 30-minute show while your car's charged. You don't even feel it, and it's charging. You're ready to go.
Definitely.
So, yeah, like you said, it's going to be the way of the future. You don't have to go to the gas station or anything. I'll miss having to go to Wawa because I would try to go to Wawa specifically to get gas and go get a hoagie or whatever. But I like it. I think it's safe. I think this auto driving is going to be something that once perfected, it's never going to be perfected, but once it's made of better use or more common, it's going to probably even save some lives, because if you have two electric vehicles that know that they're not supposed to hit each other, we could probably save a lot more lives than, human error.
I agree with that.
Is that going to be true all the time? No, but it's going to help.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Did you see somebody posted on one of the social medias that they were a homeless person and they live in their Tesla, and Tesla sells this with you can get it as an add-on with your car, like privacy blankets and stuff for your windows and stuff, a fold down mattress that goes, where the seats are. And then you can use Netflix right there on the screen, just like you said, like you basically got like your own little hut. You're living in your Tesla.
Well, what I heard, Mark, is on the Model 3, I'm sure on the other models as well. Literally, if you put the seats down and use the trunk area, you can lay down there, full stretch, and just be there.
I think it was the Model 3 that they were showing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely doable. I don't know how comfortable it would be or how you would wake up after 8 hours with some back pains. But it's when you're going to a NASCAR race and all the hotels are sold out, I'll sleep there.
I've done it.
There you go. I did it once at Dover many moons ago, and it wasn't good.
Oh, yeah. So the van that I'm looking at with Charlie, we had one when I was growing up, me and my dad, and we slept in the back of that one year, and that was as comfortable as you would imagine. But I always had a habit of, we used to drive box trucks, and we had box trucks, and I would throw the junk mattress we had at our house in the back of that box truck, and we'd sleep in there. We got stuck.
Oh, that works. Yeah, you got to make everything work. And, that's fun times. I mean, to be honest, that's why race car drivers at the professional level have their, what do you call them, their mobile homes and stuff like that. I mean, granted, that's a little bit more luxurious, and they probably have a little bit softer mattresses and everything. But that's the reason why, man, because you want to make sure that, it's not just about getting in the car and going fast, but it's also making sure that you're getting a good night's sleep and you're rested well for whatever's to come the next day. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we're looking at. EVs everywhere. The Hummer is coming out electric. That's going to have the equivalent of 1,000 horsepower. And so, if off-road vehicles are starting to do this, which is probably a little bit harder because you got to make sure how you're using more electricity in order to go off-road, to go up mountains and do all that stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard of Extreme E, which is a new off-road rally type racing where they're using SUVs. And Hummer and GM have actually agreed to be one of the cars that are going to be participating. So it'd be nice to see some Dakar kind of looking cars racing in some rally type Dakar-ish racing. And it's going to happen. Formula E is booming. Next year, the WRC cars are going to be hybrid powered, not fully electric, but they're going to be hybrid powered. And like we talked about with our last episode with the Travis Pastrana deal and Nitro Rallycross, while they're still going to have the supercar class, they're also going to have a fully electric class, which, I actually believe that class is going to rival the supercar class because those cars might even be faster than the supercars. When would you have ever thought about that?
Yeah, I would think so for sure. It's instant power, and all of it, all of the power.
All of it, to all four tires. So, and as we said in this program before, we definitely want to see if we can be a part of that. We have plans for the future for you and I to continue racing in NARA and doing big things. And I'd also like to find a way to do something with these electric vehicles because not only do I think that electric vehicles are cool, and believe me, when I test drove that Tesla, that changed my mind and flipped the switch completely because I thought electric vehicles were dull and nothing good. But once I drove a Tesla, I can only imagine what an electric race car feels like. If the Tesla, which is street legal, is fast, imagine a race car electric vehicle. So, I would definitely like to get my hands on one of those EV rally cars and see what they can do. But the other thing I think that's also interesting, Mark, and believe me, you and I have discussed this ad nauseum about like looking for sponsorship and sponsors out there. And I think if we can go with a platform to companies that right now are trying to be environmentally friendly, environmental conscientious, all these things, if we can go to them with a platform saying, hey, we want to race, this is going to be on TV, Travis Pastrana is behind it, and you're not polluting the air, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, I think it opens us up for a little bit more conversations on having actual sponsorship dollars to go behind a program like this.
So I wonder if Travis Pastrana decided to try and make this move with everything going on in Annapolis. Remember that he was going to try and get that track going, and he was getting pushback from some people saying that it was going to be loud, it was going to be dangerous, it was going to be this and that. So, I mean, with electric cars, you have almost no sound. I mean, they're very quiet, and there's no emissions.
100%.
So yeah. I wonder if that's kind of like part of that, and just because we're getting to the point now where I think EV is just the way that we're going. I'm gonna miss the smell of race gas and the noise, but yeah.
Well,
I mean,
Ford's got you covered with the noise because I told you with the Mustang Mach-E. Even though it's quiet, it has a setting where you can simulate engine noise so that people like you and I who missed that can actually still get some of the engine noise.
That's nice. Well, my son Noah makes enough car noises for everybody. So if you miss your car sound, just go. You can come on over and borrow him for a few days.
There you go. We can make that work. But yeah, no, this is some good conversation, and like we said to you guys out there. Part of this program is talking about what Mark and I like about being car enthusiasts. Yes, we talk a lot about racing, but regular cars as well. Mark definitely works on his cars. He has the ability to. He has the knowledge and the wherewithal to do that. I don't. I can't. But that's why Mark and I become good partners because while he may know the actual mechanical side of things, I actually do like reading upon these things and maybe just knowing the theoretical part of things. I guess that's where my studious side comes from. But while I may understand how some things works, Mark actually knows how things work and can, go wrench it out, do whatever you need to do to get it working. And that's something admirable that you do, Mark.
I either can or I know a guy. So
there you go. And in my case, I only know guys and some girls. Let's not stereotype.
Yeah, that's true. I know some girls in the industry too. So
yes, for sure. But as we move on, so as some of you may have noticed, at least for those of you watching this on YouTube, Mark and I are wearing shirts that depict one individual that really needs no introduction in the motorsports world, more specifically in the NASCAR world. So as you can see, Mark is wearing his Dale Earnhardt t-shirt there. I have the Intimidator because that's what he was known as. He was the Intimidator. And with it being Daytona Speed Weeks this week, the Daytona 500 on Sunday, we thought it'd be appropriate to talk about the life of Dale Earnhardt, talk about his influence in the sport, what he did while he was racing, what the legacy that he left behind as he was racing. And I don't think we even needed to find a special guest to talk about this, because Mark, growing up, has always been a Dale Earnhardt fan. His family's been a Dale Earnhardt fan. And I think that's what got Mark into racing. So I definitely want to poke and prod a little bit to Mark and get his information on Dale, what it meant to him, what it meant to Mark to have Dale Earnhardt out in the streets, in the racetrack, not the streets, racing, winning the championships that he did, ultimately winning his Daytona 500. And unfortunately ending with his tragic death in 2001 at the very same track where folks are going to race next Sunday. So, Mark, I'm going to have you start this. I think it's only appropriate. And tell us about your thoughts on Dale, what you remember of him as a kid, any highlights, and, let's just go from there.
Yeah, so Dale Earnhardt has always been my hero. I mean, you grow up, you pick a guy, I don't know if it's a baseball player, football player, you grow up and there's a guy in your life that's like, well, that's my hero. That's my sports icon right there. If I'm going to root for a guy, it will always be this guy. And sometimes it can be a whole team, and NASCAR, it's a whole team. So for me, it was Dale Earnhardt and their team, and that was my guy. And that's who I grew up, when I had my birthday parties when I was a little kid. It was always, Mark, what do you want your birthday party to be like? Oh, dude, we're going to Acme. I'm finding all the NASCAR stuff. Oh, I want a Dale Earnhardt birthday party. What do you want to be for Halloween? I want to be Dale Earnhardt. It was always, you couldn't find the costume anywhere. We're always sold out. Well, we always tried to be Dale Earnhardt, but unfortunately,
So, Mark, let me ask you this quick question, because I think it's very pertinent right now. What was it about Dale Earnhardt that got you excited that you wanted your whole birthday at a young age, 10 years old, 8 years old, 15 years old, whatever the case may be? What was it about him that was so legendary or so superhero that attracted you to him?
He's just aggressive. I mean, you get him on the track, he would knock guys out of the way, Tiff's bringing this over to me. She's bringing it over. Like, this was mine when I was like 7 years old. Now, I don't have the rest of it. I mean, unfortunately, I probably broke it or something. But I mean, I put like tape and stuff on there to try and keep the logos on it. Like, I was always trying to fill around and stuff. But I had this when I was 7. My grandfather bought it for me, actually. So that's hilarious. She just walked by here. He's like, "Hey, look at this." But yeah. I mean, look at the car. I mean, come on now. Dale Earnhardt moved a good wrench in '88 when I was born. So, like, you had this awesome, look at that. You just can't get over. That's just an amazing paint job. It just strikes fear in somebody. When you see that in your mirror, that's the Intimidator, black car.
That's a lot of what I've heard and seen in videos. It was that when that black car was in your rearview mirror, people had a fear. They were concerned on what was going to happen. And I don't think it's because I never saw Earnhardt as a dirty driver. Did he do some stuff sometimes to move people out of the way? The bumper run. He tried to rattle some people's cages, as his infamous and Terry Labonte at Bristol.
Yep. 2 years in a row.
Yeah. And so it was interesting. But it was interesting also that when he did it to Terry, he would always get out of his car, and even though he said, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that," he had this big old grin on his face.
Yeah, he got fined for that. No.
Him
and Darrell Waltrip.
But no, you know what that reminds me? It reminds me of like when me and my brother were growing up, and we both did something, but only he got caught, and I'm like laughing at him, like, "Yeah, you got caught. I did."
Yeah.
So I feel that Earnhardt always had that sense of, he knew what his place was, and he knew what he was doing.
He certainly knew like where the limit was as far as how far he could push somebody, and then after the race, put his arm around you and be like, "Hey, man, we're good, right? I didn't mean all that." And, you guys were buddies. Like 10 minutes later, like, "Oh yeah, well, Earnhardt said we're good, so we're good, I guess."
So let me ask you this now: do you feel that because of how aggressive he was, is why people cheered for him, or why people liked him?
I think so. I mean, he was aggressive, but he was also, as aggressive as he was also like really big into like helping the sport grow. I mean, he really pushed the business side of NASCAR there in the 90s. I mean, it grew at a staggering rate back then. So he was just as involved with everybody.
But Mark, let me ask you something, and there was a reason why I asked you that question is, so if Earnhardt was applauded and cheered for being aggressive and towing the line and maybe pushing people out of the way, why is it that Kyle Busch of 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, who did the same exact stuff, was always booed? Can you explain that to me? Because I don't get that.
I don't know. See, because I was always a fan of that. Like when Kyle Busch was out there, kind of moving people and going, "Oh, boo-hoo," on the camera. Like I was a fan. Like I was in. I was like, "That's right. Yeah, that's how NASCAR used to be." Yeah, I was a fan. I think that people kind of just have forgotten, like maybe where NASCAR was, 15 years ago, or, Dale's been gone now for, this will be 20 years. So, and it used to be really aggressive, I mean, you're fighting to win. And now it's just, to me, sometimes it seems like it's some tracks, we go out, we spar for, 140, 200 laps, and then the last 100 we'll go ahead and run real hard. And sometimes, you can kind of flip through the channels while the race is on and then come back and, oh, there's a wreck. We'll watch this for a second. And then there's other tracks where it's just like, man, they're going hard. And you kind of miss that.
Well, let me ask you this, Mark. So, I mean, one would say that Dale Earnhardt is one of the good old boys from the South, right? He's rough and tough, and he owns a farm, and he's got chickens and all this. What do you think was the key component of him versus a Jeff Gordon who just came into the sport? What made them different? Because people didn't like Jeff when he first came in. They liked that Dale was from the old school or the good old boy. Jeff wasn't. What do you see there?
Well, I mean, I think that's just because, where the sport started. And for a lot of years, it was just the good old boys. And then you had, corporate, guys who were a little bit more, put together, I guess you could say. The kid from California who's got the nice press suit coming into NASCAR, and they're looking at him a little sideways, like, dude, what?
The supermodel girlfriend.
Yeah. It's kind of like, so I think that kind of rubbed some guys wrong. At first, I think Are
we talking about the drivers or the fans?
Probably both, honestly, because I mean, NASCAR had that big movement out west to California there for a while too. Most of the time, it was all East Coast, Middle America, and then they started expanding tracks. Vegas, California. I think that once people realized, hey, there's a market out there, they started to kind of welcome that sort of thing in to NASCAR. And when NASCAR decided they were going to expand west to get more viewership.
I'm going to get a little bit more personal. How did you feel about Jeff Gordon coming in with a nice clean press shirt and suit?
I was a Dale Earnhardt fan, so Jeff Gordon was a little pipsqueak. It was Gordon versus Earnhardt. When in the 90s, for me, I was like 10 years old. Oh yeah, I was boo Jeff Gordon. No,
I mean, here's the thing though. Jeff Gordon, while he might have been the pretty boy from California, he came up the ranks. He wasn't just handed the ride. He came up the ranks, the lower divisions of NASCAR, and came into it. So why hate on him? And I don't mean you. I mean just people in general.
That's the thing, is that rivalry was there, and I don't really think that they kind of played on the rivalry in that kind of way, but I don't really think that there was any real animosity as far as Earnhardt and Gordon were concerned. I think they kind of played it up a little bit because the fans were really into it. You could not be a Gordon fan if you were an Earnhardt fan, and you could not be an Earnhardt fan if you were a Gordon fan. You just could. It didn't matter if the manufacturers was the same. It didn't matter. Like, no, you could not. You would never ever do that.
I'll tell you what, you would never see Jeff Gordon, carrying a bale of hay anywhere.
yeah, and you would see Dale, wrenching and stuff on his car, and Gordon was not that way. I mean, he had all of Hendrick's team,
not at all. Yeah. And here's what I'll tell you. I mean, I think when I got into NASCAR, when I seriously got into NASCAR, it was about the time Jeff Gordon was he was a living legend at that time. I mean, I think there was a time where the Jeff Gordons of the world, the Tony Stewarts of the world, you said those names, along with Dale Earnhardt, obviously, and you knew who they were. You knew that they were race car drivers. I think your average person knew that a Jeff Gordon was a race car driver. I don't think the same holds true for a Jimmy Johnson. First, I don't think it helps that there's a coach in the NFL named Jimmy Johnson and everyone gets confused all the time. But second, even though Jimmy Johnson is also a 7-time champion and Jeff Gordon isn't, people will recognize the Jeff Gordon name before they do the Jimmy Johnson name any day of the week. Would you agree?
I think it's that's the time of NASCAR when you were in the middle of the 90s there, and Gordon's winning championships, Earnhardt's winning championships. That's when NASCAR was at its biggest prime time, more fans than anybody. And then, unfortunately, when Dale passed away, a lot of folks stopped watching.
It's true. It's true. It's from what I've heard, ratings and everything plummeted. I think
me and you had this conversation before. Like, for a long time, even for myself, when Dale died, it's like, who do you follow? That was my hero. Like, I lost my hero. I was 12 years old, crying in my bedroom when we heard the news. I lost my hero.
Right.
I watched the races. It's just not the same. You can't sit there and root for somebody where it's like, something's missing. As a matter of fact, we drove to Dover in 2001 for the 2001 Dover race, and we saw Kevin Harvick in a white Goodwrench car. My dad cried on the track. It's like, it didn't seem right. Where's your hero?
Right. Something's missing.
Yeah. And what do you do when your hero is gone? And I think a lot of people had that same kind of reaction to NASCAR. Like, they just, what do you do? You follow Dale Earnhardt Jr., or do you move on to Kevin Harvick? Do you pick a new guy? It's kind of hard. It's really hard.
It's very hard.
Especially with somebody that involved in the sport. He was NASCAR. To be honest.
You're right. You're right. And I agree with you with that sentiment. Look at me. I'm someone who's just a fan. Jimmy Johnson leaves. He didn't die or anything as tragic as what happened to Dale. But it's so hard for me to pick a new guy because I'm having those same kind of feelings. Obviously, it's not as severe as dying. Jimmy just left, retired, and he's doing something else. But it's just something as simple as like, so who do I follow? Who do I pick? Do I stick with the car? Well, the car was great. The 48 represented Jimmy Johnson, but it doesn't represent him anymore. So do I stay with Alex Bowman? No, I don't even think he deserves the ride. But anyway, it's kind of the same feeling, and you're right. And so you're kind of left at a miss, and especially with NASCAR Nation, Dale Earnhardt being NASCAR, being the franchise, if you will. You're right. A lot of people stopped watching. Ratings definitely went down. And to this day, there's people who said that, outside of the politics of racing and the new cars and rules and all that they still haven't watched it because of Dale not being there anymore. What I'll tell you is that I had a hard time understanding this at the beginning, because here's the thing, when I started watching NASCAR, which was about the early 2000s and stuff like that, I'm going to the tracks and I'm seeing Dale Earnhardt flags everywhere. And in my mind is like, no disrespect, but this person isn't with us anymore. Why are there still flags here? Like in my mind, as a kid, it didn't make sense anymore.
Sure.
But that's when, as you start growing up and seeing, you're like, this is how much influence this guy had. That it doesn't matter if it's 100 years from now, his flag is still going to be flying in the infield, in the parking lot, and in the stands because that's the influence that he had. Now, here's the thing, and Mark, this is my perspective, and again, I of course want to get your perspective. Once this tragic thing happened, Kevin Harvick took over the car. They rebadged the car. They turned it into the 29, but essentially he took over the ride. Then you have Junior, who's out there, racing, trying to do his thing. And like you said, it's like, well, who do you follow?
Yeah.
Harvick stayed with RCR, I guess, at that point. Or wait, at some point, DEI and Earnhardt merged, right?
DEI is Earnhardt. So Richard Childress, no, Chip Ganassi, I think, and DEI went ahead and merged.
Yeah, because they had Earnhardt Ganassi Racing existed
Correct.
At one point.
Yes.
So at this point, it's like, do you stay with Richard Childress and the 29 car, or do you now follow Dale Earnhardt Jr.? And it left those questions open. But here's where my train of thought goes. For being a new NASCAR fan in the early 2000s, I didn't know much about Dale Earnhardt at the time. I knew he was the Intimidator. I knew that he was rough. I knew this, but I didn't know him. But then I see his son, and his son by default started receiving all the accolades from the fans, all the applauses. He became the new most popular driver, this and that. But he really didn't perform. He won a couple races, but he was no Dale Earnhardt. Do you think that there was a lot of pressure on Junior, and that's why he didn't perform? Or maybe he just didn't live up to the expectations?
Wow. That's a really good question.
I didn't mean to throw that hard one at you.
No, it's a great question. I think that especially at first, I think when his father died, I think he probably had a lot of pressure on him. Especially with fans coming to him to be their new driver, like I'm sure he's getting that all the time. Like, oh, I was a huge fan of your dad's. I mean, if I met him in person, that'd be the first thing I told him. Your dad was my hero. So, I think that's a lot of pressure, especially when your dad was NASCAR. Your dad was the franchise for a long time. I definitely agree with you that there's a lot of pressure there. Now, for him to perform, some people will say he underperformed. He never won a Winston Cup, but a Cup championship. He won 2 Busch Series championships, or Xfinity, or whatever you want to call it now. But yeah, I think there was a lot of pressure.
Because, we get into him, he had the ride with DEI, then he had the ride with Earnhardt Ganassi Racing, and then he moved over to Hendrick. And these are all top equipment at those times.
Mm-hmm.
So what was missing?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, and he got some success with them. He got a Daytona 500. Actually, I think he got 2. So there was some success there.
Right.
I just don't know if I don't know what the deal was there.
Here's my perspective, and here's the thing. I watch racing as most people watch football or the NBA or the MLB and stuff like that. But NASCAR and UFC and soccer are my top sports. And if we're being honest, NASCAR is like up there as my number one. And I look at all these personalities on TV, and we don't really know them. We just know what we see on track, the reactions before or after the race, and all of this and that. But at the very beginning, when I started seeing Junior at the track, I didn't like him. No disrespect to Junior. He's a great person. He's a great family man now. But I didn't like him. And you know why I didn't like him, Mark? It's because I felt that he had the ego or the impression that he was his dad. And maybe I was wrong. Maybe I wasn't coming with the full story to the plate. But the fact that, I'm at a race and everyone's cheering when he gets the lead, or you can actually watch a race and, people are pitting and he gets the lead and people are cheering and you can hear it through the microphones.
Yeah.
I just didn't like that. It was something that rubbed me the wrong way. And you might remember this, I don't know, but there was an incident between him and Kyle Busch at Richmond a couple years ago where Kyle punted him out of the way and he was pissed and freaking people wanted to jump over the fence and kill Kyle Busch.
Yeah. You don't do that as a junior.
That pissed me off. But that's the thing. All right, you just said you don't do that to junior. And so in my mind, I'm like, who's he? I didn't say that, right? Who is he? And so it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I'll be honest, even when he came to Hendrick and he became a teammate to Jimmy, and then at some point they actually went into the same garage. They put the 48 and the 88 because the 88 wasn't performing. I still didn't like him. But I'll tell you this. When he won, I would cheer because I cheer when every driver wins, even if it is Keselowski. I didn't say that.
That's fine.
But when I really started to like Dale Jr., and right now I'm a Dale Jr. fan, and right now I actually want to go onto NASCAR.com and buy Dale Jr.'s shirt. Is because ever since he started his podcast, my vision, my mind, my thought, everything that I believed about him did a 360. I love the guy now. I've never met the guy in my life, but I can say that I would love to have a beer with him. I would share a meal with him. I would watch a race with him. I think he could be a friend of mine, like any other, like you or any other friend that I have, because you can actually sit down and listen to the stories that he has to tell about his father, about his racing, about the situations that he was going through. Because let's know that he actually stepped out of the vehicle when he was driving for Hendrick for a little bit because he had some concussion stuff, and so he went through his medical issues as well. But I can tell you, I love Dale Earnhardt Jr., the race car driver. I may have not liked as a fan, but Dale Earnhardt Jr., the retired race car driver who podcasts and talks about his family and everything, I love. And it's little things like that can change your mind of a person just like that.
Yeah. I feel like I was kind of blessed and lucky that I've been watching NASCAR since I was 3 or 4 years old. So I was, when in 1997 and 8, when he was, doing the Busch series and stuff, I got to kind of watch him grow into the sport, You
had a better understanding of his
for sure. Yeah. Even with Carrie and,
Teresa?
Not Teresa, the other one. I don't know why I'm blanking on his sister's name, but
Kelly.
She was actually better than both of them driving the short tracks. So Kelly Earnhardt.
Her daughter races now. Eldridge.
Does she?
Ooh, I know something about an Earnhardt that you know, and I'm impressed.
I'm sure she does. But do you know about Taylor? Do you know what she does?
I didn't know there was a Taylor.
Okay, so Taylor is my age. Dale Earnhardt's daughter. She's a horse racer. But yeah, whatever.
Oh wow! Does she race with the number 3?
I don't know. I don't know that. That'd be excellent.
This is your homework assignment for the next episode.
Yes. I know she recently got married and she horse races. I don't know much else other than that.
No, that's cool.
She's super friendly on social media. I know that. So,
how do you know that, Mark?
Because I follow her on Instagram.
You made it sound like you interact on a daily basis. I'm just saying.
No. No, I follow all the Earnhardt family on social media because that was the family that I grew up loving. So
for sure. No, they're great. And here's the thing: NASCAR would not be what it is today if there wasn't an Earnhardt family. Because even going through everything that happened with Teresa, everything that happened with Dale Jr., even going down to who else was on the team? Michael Waltrip and all that stuff. It almost feels like some of the things that happened in the history of NASCAR couldn't have happened if we didn't have this timeline of things that did happen with Earnhardt and his team and DEI.
Yeah.
I will say, Mark, here's one of there's a couple things, and I took down some notes, and I've known this about Earnhardt, but I took down a couple notes of things that I wanted to discuss with you because I think they're fun things.
Like
number one
I
is
have a big question for you too.
Oh,
and
sure.
We'll get to that here after you're done.
Okay.
And I think that it's going to be a good topic for understanding where we both side on NASCAR and coming into it at different times.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, let's get through this list. It's like 4 things that I have here about Earnhardt, and I want to get your reaction and kind of see where things are.
This is good content.
So the first thing, the pass on the grass. You got to be familiar with the pass on the grass.
It wasn't a pass.
It wasn't a pass, but it's called the pass on the grass.
I know.
This is like one of the most famous or infamous things that Dale Earnhardt ever did.
Dale would just not let go of that steering wheel, man. I swear.
The gas.
Foot in the gas and just, oh, man. If that isn't some driving, if you watch, and I'm hoping you did watch the Dale the movie special,
right.
Did you not see some of the sliding around that he did? That man was a driver.
He was a wheelman for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how his hands didn't have blisters on them like the entire time. Hell, Tony Stewart about 5 years ago came out of the car with blisters, and these are on the modern cars. Go back to those cars that he was driving, the old Lumina or Monte Carlos. I don't know how those hands weren't just like down to the bone.
He is a wheel man, I swear. He could drive with the best of them.
The pass on the grass, like Mark said, is not a pass. But what it is Earnhardt got loose in the front stretch. Was this at Daytona or Charlotte? I think it was Charlotte. I'm not 100% sure.
Charlotte or Talladega. I can't remember. I don't
he gets loose. He's going for the lead. He gets loose. He goes through the grass, but he doesn't lose it. He goes back on the asphalt or the tarmac, and he takes the lead, and he just leaves. And it's one of those things that it's a simple clip. It's probably no longer than 3 seconds, but it's ingrained in NASCAR's history because it's the pass on the grass, and it was something cool. Dale didn't lift. He passed. He stayed in the lead, and that's what we want all race cars to do, right? Just go for the lead and take whatever risk you need to take.
I mean, that's just incredible car control. Just never lifting, never for a second, just that confidence, in your ability to just make it happen. That's. You don't see a lot of that anymore.
For sure. So the next thing I have here, Mark, this is at Daytona. I actually don't know what year it was, but it was a year that he was driving at Daytona. His car flips on the front straightaway. So NASCAR protocol to this day is that if you are involved in an accident, you have to get in the ambulance and get taken to the in-care
1997
center. There you go.
Yeah.
But what does Dale do? He gets in the ambulance, takes a look at his car, says, all 4 wheels are on it. Get me
Let's
out
see
of
if
here.
it goes.
Gets out of the ambulance, hops in the car, rides it around the pit road, and they freaking taped it up, and he kept racing.
That's it. You don't want to lose any of those valuable points. He's running for a championship. He's thinking ahead of the game.
That's exactly what he was thinking. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, Mark, I think that is the ultimate thing any race car driver can do. He's not even thinking about his well-being. And we're talking about, a couple of 10, 15 years ago, where, safety wasn't as safe as it is today. But he still, let me get back in the car. I want to keep racing. You know what I kind of equal this to? I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, GRC was doing an event in California. And Travis Pastrana was driving at that time the Dodge Dart. And I don't know if you recall this, Mark, but the night before he was playing around with his bike, doing flips or whatever, and he broke his leg. I don't know how severe it was. I don't know nothing, but he broke his leg.
He was still on the Subaru team. He did the X Games. It was just all X Games, actually.
No, this was the Dart.
Orange Boost mobile car.
No,
Subaru.
No.
Yep.
We're not talking about the same story.
Okay, but he did break his leg, and they had this
let's be honest. The man has broken his car how many times?
Yeah.
Yes. No, it is the hand. So it might be this. I could have swore this was on the Dodge Dart.
Yeah, no, it was
Vermont Sports Car. He had the hand controls. But what he did more than anything, because when you're racing, you're not allowed to be under the influence of anything. So he couldn't have any painkillers. But they wrapped his leg around the roll cage so that it would be stable and not move, and he went out with the hand controls. So I might be mistaken on which car it was. I thought it was a Dodge
STI. Yeah.
But he went out there and raced. And so that is a true racer's racer. Like, my mom was watching this, and she said that's the craziest or stupidest thing she's ever seen anyone do. And in my mind, I'm like, that is some of the awesomest thing as a race car driver that you can do, because no painkillers, no nothing. They adjusted the car for, hand controls. Yeah. He didn't do well, but the fact that he got out there and continued racing, I equate that a little bit to what Earnhardt did. Of course, they're two separate motorsports, two separate histories. They're both legends in their own kind. Yeah. But I kind of just said that that's a racer's race. So
I got a great one for you. So Earnhardt, I don't remember what race it was, but he broke his collarbone. Then he did the Brickyard, I think, where he actually got out of the car injured because he couldn't run. He just couldn't make it. He only started for points. The very next race was Watkins Glen. He qualified injured, track record. Watkins Glen. Well, I think it was a collarbone. How insane
is that? Imagine if he wasn't injured.
I think he won. I want to say that he won that race, but I don't want to be. I think it was that year that he got his first road course win. I could be wrong on that,
right?
But I do know that he got that in
again.
95.
That's amazing. Now, granted, a lot of the things that he did back in the day, even some of the ones that we've outlined already, he wouldn't be allowed to do today. Like, there's no way under any safety protocols that they would have let him get back in the car and continue racing. And as a matter of fact, NASCAR rule now states that once your window net comes down, you're done. So, and you have to put the window net down to tell them that you're safe. So it's one of those things. The Rattle the Cage incident, we talked about that. But this is the one that, outside of him winning the Daytona 500, which everyone came out and applauded him, this is the one that got me. 2000 Talladega, he was in 18th place with 4 laps to go, and he drove through the field like there was no tomorrow. You might have thought he was driving on NASCAR Heat on PlayStation. He is literally slicing through everybody, getting the right runs, taking the draft. At the end, Kenny Wallace pushed him to the finish. And, yeah, man, if you ever want to see Earnhardt do his thing in his prime, check out the last 4 laps of the 2000 Talladega race, because that is an amazing thing to watch.
I remember that day. I remember watching the race live as a little kid.
Yeah, it's one of those things. But he's done a lot of things, Mark, and it's amazing, and it's sad that we lost him. Who knows how many more championships he could have won? Who knows how many more races he could have won? Top 3s, top 5s, top 10s, top 20s. Who knows how far he could have made it in this arena? But it's one of those things that we're sad. Now, the one thing that I do want to mention is safety in racing, and we always talk about we had our role, and obviously our race cars are equipped with a harness around the car, bucket racing seats, 5-point race harnesses. We do wear Hans devices, the helmet. So we're wearing pretty much everything that a NASCAR driver wears, we wear in comparison. I mean, yes, their suits might be a couple $1,000s more than ours, but essentially it's the same type of gear. So I will say now, here's an article that actually came out a couple days ago, and I texted you the other day, and it was talking about would the Hans device, and I wish I should have gone upstairs and brought the Hans device to show you guys. But would the Hans device have saved Dale Earnhardt's life had he worn it? Now, here's something I didn't know, because I was always under the impression, at least until before reading this article, that the Hans device was invented based on Earnhardt's death, and that's what gave birth to the Hans device. Although that I was mistaken on that, because from what I understand is that the Hans was already invented, and actually in the race that he raced in at Daytona, where his tragic passing happened, there was 5 people who were already wearing Hans devices. He was told, or he was given the opportunity to wear it. He basically said, "You're a P if you wear it." Not some nice words. He said he didn't like it. He said it was uncomfortable. And I will attest to that. It is actually very uncomfortable. I don't like it. But when you know what it does for you, and the safety and the fact that it's going to keep your head attached to your body, you understand. But granted, back in that day, you didn't know that. All he knew is that for what he needed to do and however he needed to move or maneuver, well, it would just be to the left or to the right road courses. He just didn't like it.
Another thing, leaned up against the side of the car there. My man was seeing the air.
Well, that's one of the other things. So, right, he opted to wear the open face helmet. So any traditional Earnhardt picture that we see or that you guys can Google, he's got the big old goggles. There you go. He's got the big old goggles and he's got the open face helmet. Now, I will say, and of course, when I talk about my experiences, it's already with hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but with a lot of experience that, I get to go and buy the Hans device. But there's a lot of people that died, were injured, in order for the Hans device to be what it is today. So for us to be able to go buy it is because someone else had to lay the groundwork. Unfortunately, either passing away, being injured, or whatnot. People studied and got to perfect devices that would help us future racers. Now, the open face helmet, Mark, and you and I have had this discussion every single time. And now, reading this article, it actually makes me know that I feel that I'm still more in the right on what to go with an open or closed face. ARA, or the American Rally Association, allows you to run either an open face helmet or a closed face helmet. It's your discretion as long as it falls within the safety protocols and standards that they deem possible, which are usually in line with what the FIA requires drivers in all types of motorsports, from Formula One to WRC to everything to wear. Now, I've always told Mark that I feel safer wearing a full face helmet. Now, it's not because I knew anything better. It's not because I was doing research or because I was doing this. But for me, the fact that I have my head encapsulated in an entire frame just made me feel that if I were ever to be in an accident, I have something at least protecting the face. Now, again, is it uncomfortable? Yes, it can be. Is it hard to breathe sometimes? Yes, it is. Does it get all, your moisture gets on the screen and you got to wipe it? Yes, it does. But I think it's safer. Now, the open face helmet, and to this day, like people like Travis Pastrana, David Higgins, they still use the open face helmet because I'm sure I've never actually used one in competition. I'm sure it's easier to breathe and I'm sure it's easier to do stuff. But by reading the Earnhardt article, now I know more than ever that I don't want the open face helmet. And I was getting closer to the idea, but there's nothing protecting there. So I don't know, Mark, I know we've had this discussion in the past, but after hearing about this, does this change your mind at all? And if it doesn't, that's fine because everyone has their own opinion on stuff. But what do you think after hearing this and kind of seeing how it ties into what we're talking about today with Earnhardt?
So no, I think I still prefer the open face helmet. I do like the ability to breathe. There are face shields that you can wear now with these helmets too. So you are a little bit more protected than you would think being completely open helmet. I do like the bottom half to be open with that microphone. I think it's a little easier to breathe and maneuver around the helmet too. Like when you're getting it off, it's pretty easy.
Right.
One for me, you gotta have it. So I think that as long as the Hans device is there, I'm totally okay with the open face helmet. If I'm Well, let's just put it that way, because you're never not going to run without a Hans device in this day and age.
You're not allowed to.
In my opinion, you're an idiot. I think you're an idiot if you ever even try to run without a Hans device. In my opinion, or it doesn't have to be a Hans, but some sort of restraint for your head.
Neck restraint system, yeah. And yes, for clarification, Hans is an actual brand, but it is just a head and neck restraint system. There's a lot of different brands out there. Hans is just what it's known by. It's one of the more popular brands, but there are other brands out there.
Yeah, I think that as long as if you want to wear open face helmet, that's fine, but that you need a Hans or equivalent.
For sure.
The way to go.
But
so my question for you, I got my question for you. Being a guy who didn't grow up watching Dale Earnhardt,
right?
You didn't grow up watching Dale Earnhardt. You know about him. You've seen the flags going into the stands. Who the heck is this guy? Why is he still so prevalent? Why are they still flying his flag? Now that we've had conversations about him, and I've asked you to kind of learn about him a little bit here, what do you think? What's your take? Coming from your side of the fence there for NASCAR.
For sure. So I definitely think he is a legend in the sport. There's no doubt about it. The stuff that he's done, like I said, in a way needed to happen in order for NASCAR to progress and be to where it's at today. So as a driver, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, I think he's a great person. Now, if we pull back the onion a little bit, and let's assume hypothetically that I was a NASCAR fan during the era in which he was a driver. Would I have been a fan of him? Probably not. No disrespect to Dale Earnhardt. No disrespect. But I can tell you this, there's a reason I don't like Floyd Mayweather, because he's cocky, he's flashy, he thinks he's the best in the world and no one can touch him. And it's probably true. He's 30-0. He gets to do that. I just don't like it. There's a reason I don't like Conor McGregor. He's flashy. He talks a lot. He thinks he's the man. Unlike Mayweather, he's actually lost, but he still thinks he's the man. I almost put Dale Earnhardt in that point of view. When he's crashing into people, whether it's, for fun or for games, or he didn't mean to do it, or I just wanted to rattle your cage, I put him in that light. I put him in the light that he thinks that because he is Earnhardt and because he is the Intimidator, that he had the right to do this and that no one should say anything back to him. In the incident with Terry Labonte, Terry Labonte, not Bobby, no, Terry. In the incident with Terry Labonte in Bristol, people love Terry Labonte. I was looking into that. He was like the angel face. And at that time, Earnhardt actually got booed at that race. Now, people don't connect these lines. People think that Earnhardt was always this person that everyone always cheered for and he was the man. People used to boo him, and people don't remember that. Of course, you always want to remember the best times. You don't want to remember those times. I think I probably would have been a Terry Labonte fan before I was an Earnhardt fan, just because of the personality of the type of person that they were and whatnot. Now, can I respect the body of work that Earnhardt did? Of course. I always say, Keselowski, as a NASCAR driver, I dislike. I actually got the opportunity to meet Keselowski in person at SEMA a couple years ago. He was the nicest person ever. You would have never thought it. I would have never thought it. He introduced himself to me. He's like, I was wearing my name tag, and he's like, "Hi, Anthony, how are you? My name is Brad Keselowski. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming out. Would you like a picture?" In my mind, I'm thinking of the Keselowski that I see on TV. I'm thinking of the Keselowski that put Carl Edwards in the fence 100 times. I'm thinking of the guy that I'm like, I don't like you. But when I met him face to face, I was like, I can't not like you because you're so nice.
I know. I can't hate Brad Keselowski. I love his Facebook Lives. Like, if he gets wrecked, he got wrecked out of a couple races, I think 2 years ago. And his Facebook Lives after, with him just going around having beers with the fans, that's just awesome to me. That's incredible.
Yeah. But to finish answering your question, I respect everything the man has done. I think he has his place in history. Would I have been his fan? No. Why do I have his gear now? Because I do feel that this is greatness. This is no difference than wearing shirts from your superheroes from other sports that may still be alive or be, passed away. So I do believe in following the tradition. On the back of the shirt, it says, the first guy or the second place is the first loser. I can agree with things like that. I mean, if he said that to me to my face, or if anyone said that to my face, I'd probably not enjoy it very much. But I can respect the man. Now, here's what I'll tell you, Mark, and here's where I'll flip your question a little bit. The reason I like Jimmy Johnson or the Jeff Gordons of the world is for everything you just said, because where Dale Earnhardt is the everyday man of the 1900s, he's wearing boots, he's working on his farm and everything. That isn't something also that I can relate to. I don't come from the South. Yeah. I don't have a farm. My parents didn't do farming stuff. I also learned that Earnhardt actually had a deal with Purdue chicken. So the Purdue chicken that you buy at the supermarket used to be Earnhardt chickens.
Which is awesome.
Don't know if you knew that, but I learned that. So that would have been another thing that I can't relate to him. And so when someone, and I'm not saying that I was a huge Jeff Gordon fan, but I did like him. But when someone like Jimmy comes into the picture and he is wearing the suit and he is sitting with corporate executives and having conversations and bringing sponsors that, Lowe's was in the sport before Jimmy came in, but the associate sponsors that may have not been in the sport before, I almost saw myself in him. And I'm not talking about race or any of that stuff that we talk about today where everyone gets offended over everything. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, I see that Jimmy Johnson is wearing a suit. I wear suits for work. This is what I do. Him and I have this in common. But not only do we have this in common, he raises professional NASCAR, something that if I could do tomorrow, I would drop everything I'm doing to go drive for NASCAR. And so that's what I saw in him. That's what I liked about him. I like that he was proper. He never got in a fight or an argument with any other driver. That's almost like my personality. Like, if another driver is beating us, I'd probably yell at you first, Mark, and be like, why is he beating us? Why is he passing us? You know how I get sometimes when someone has passed us. But sure. I'm never going to go to the other driver and call him out or say I'm not confrontational. Neither is Jimmy. So as I saw those things in him that I saw in me, I saw that's why I can be your fan. That's kind of the same attributes that I see with Denny Hamlin. Now, I don't play basketball. I don't care about the NBA. He does. That's maybe something that we're not in common, but he is also a businessman. He's also an entrepreneur, and that's what kind of attracted me to him. Earnhardt doesn't have the qualities that I see in me or that I see something similar, and I think that would have been another reason why I probably wouldn't have been his fan, and I probably would have been more of a Jeff Gordon fan more in the earlier years. But again, no disrespect to the man. I'll still buy his merchandise. I still think he belongs in the sport, never to be forgotten. And like I said, Junior, same thing. For me, he did a turnaround with this podcast and still being involved in the sport and giving back by being a commentator and all that stuff. So those are my 2 cents on that.
Speaking of commentators, I am really hyped for Clint Boyer, man. He is hilarious. Man. I cannot wait.
Now, this is something we can agree on, man, because Clint Boyer, I love Clint Boyer. Now, him and I have nothing in common. Now, this is going to sound a little hypocritical because, I just said that I had nothing in common with Earnhardt. That's why I wouldn't have been his fan had I been given the choice. But Clint Boyer, he's also a good old boy. He's also a farmer. But, dude, his personality, literally, we could sit in here. I feel like I can have a beer with him and just shoot and have some fun. So I can't wait to see him in the booth. I don't know if you remember, but Gordon, who's in the booth as well, and Boyer had issues on track.
Yes.
I remember that one time.
Did you see there was a Twitter post from NASCAR Fox, and it's a video of Clint Boyer running to the trailer, running to Jeff Gordon's trailer after their incident, and it says running to meet your new coworker.
Yes, I saw that.
That was hysterical.
They have a new commercial now. you'll probably see it if you haven't seen it yet, where it's like Jeff is like wearing his suit and everything, and he's going up to the Fox offices in the elevator, and he sees Clint coming, and Clint's still trying to put his like tie on because he's not a tie wearing guy. But Gordon closes the elevator on him, and then Clint has to run up the escalators and stuff, and he's like all dressed, not well groomed and stuff, and it's like, yeah, you're a good old boy. I'm a suit guy. I thought that was pretty funny and pretty telling. But yeah, I look forward to seeing both of them in the booth, and it's nice to see these old racers giving back because yes, even though I'm sure they're getting paid a nice salary, the fact that they're giving back their knowledge and experience of having driven these cars is great. I mean, I wish we still had DW because I love DW, the boogity. I would wish that one of the other guys would pick it up and say it. I think that's also NASCAR tradition, and I think it should be kept, but I know that due to respect, no one else is going to say it.
I wish Earnhardt was still alive because I'm sure he'd be a fantastic commentator.
Oh, for sure. But all right, Mark, I think it's time to close this out. So I wanted to do a little cheers with you.
Toast.
To a little toast to Dale Earnhardt and everything that he brought in the sport, because believe it or not, anyone who races has been affected by Dale Earnhardt, whether you know it or not. And I'm even talking about the good old boys in Formula One who probably don't even know who Earnhardt is. But the fact is that after his death, the Hans device was improved to help other drivers in the future. So everyone or anyone who races who has ever worn any type of head and neck restraint, know that even though it wasn't created because of Earnhardt's death, it was improved because of Earnhardt's death, and it may have saved lives in the future. So I want to say thank you for that, because even though, we're not at that level, we still use these devices that help us, and it most likely helped us in our crash, because it could have always been a lot worse without having that there. And best believe we're going to have an episode to talk about our crash, our different points of views and everything. But I raise this little shot to you, Mark, and what's to say? Do it for Dale.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, do it for Dale. Absolutely. Take care of yourself.
All right, folks, that is all we have for today. As always, please give us a follow, give us a like. If you're following us on YouTube, definitely subscribe to the channel. If you want to listen just to the audio part of this, you can always visit us on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, and any other podcasting hosting platform that you like. We will be on there. Until next time, do you have any final words there, Mark?
No, this is a really good episode for me. I'm, like I said, a huge Dale Earnhardt fan, for basically all my life. So this one's a good touch at home kind of thing. I did want to add on there, when you were talking about the Hans device, I don't believe that anybody in NASCAR has died since the Earnhardt accident because of the safety protocols they put in place after his death.
And safety protocols are very important. And not to cut you off, Mark, but for anyone racing, from even if you're doing the cheapest Saturday racing to all the way up in professional racing, please do not skimp out on safety equipment. Just because something is a lot cheaper and gets you past regulations or tech does not mean that it's worth it. When your life's on the line, make sure you get good things that are not expired. A lot of these safety equipment have expiration dates. We all want to have fun, but we all want to be safe. And sorry, Mark, you can continue because I cut you off.
No, you're good, and that's great. That's a great way to end. Definitely, if you could advise anybody, that's one of the big things you want to check. You want to make sure you're safe. You want to make sure that the equipment works to your benefit. I know we've tried some equipment out that wasn't for us. I mean, it was correct. It was okay for the time, but we were like, okay, after this event, it's time to move on from this piece of equipment. So yeah, definitely, test it before you get involved with your racing body or sanction, and
for sure
it's what you need.
Great. All right, everyone. And our next podcast at this point will be after the Daytona 500. So I'm sure Mark and I will have some thoughts on that. We'll see who wins. Will Denny get the three-peat? Will Martin Truex Jr. get to victory lane? What's going to happen with Bubba Wallace and Michael Jordan? Is Michael Jordan going to change tires? I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
and Pitbull has a team now too, so I guess we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah. See how advantageous they are. Maybe they will change some tires or throw some gas in.
There you go. All right, guys. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.